Welcome to the Applied Biosystems Taq Talk video series, where we break down real-time PCR to make it easier for you. Are you new to real-time PCR? Have you ever wondered what CT values are and how they relate to qPCR analysis? Let's talk about it. To answer these questions, we need to first understand what happens in a qPCR experiment. qPCR stands for Quantitative Polymerase Chain Reaction. During qPCR, DNA amplification is measured in real time by monitoring fluorescent dye signals. The dye signal increases in direct proportion with the number of PCR products. By collecting this fluorescent signal during the exponential phase of the reaction, we're able to obtain quantitative information about the starting amount of the DNA target. Here's how. Let's examine this representative qPCR amplification plot. A threshold line is drawn through the plot in the exponential phase of the curve. Reagents are plentiful during this phase, and there is thus an exact doubling of the target. From this intersection, we can drop down to the x-axis and assign a CT value to this amplification reaction. Okay, so now we've got a CT value, but what does this mean? And why is smaller better? The CT value, or threshold cycle, is the cycle number at which the fluorescent signal of the reaction crosses the threshold. The CT value is inversely related to the starting amount of our target DNA. For example, if I have one sample with 200 nanograms of cDNA and another with 25 nanograms of cDNA, I'll get an earlier CT or smaller CT value with the first one. This is because it will take fewer PCR cycles for the fluorescent signal to rise above the background for the first sample. Since the second sample is starting with only 1/8 as much template, it will take more cycles to reach the same level of detectable fluorescence. So, here's the take-home message. As the amount of DNA template decreases, the CT value will increase. If the CT value gets too high, say a CT of 35 for a 96 well plate, it can be difficult to distinguish real signal from background. For this reason, many researchers will employ a CT cutoff and not use any data above that CT value. Researchers who want to optimize their systems will often look at the raw CT values to determine whether or not a reagent improves performance. Let's say you ran the same samples and assays with two different master mixes. A master mix that results in an early CT is beneficial because you will not need to use as much sample for the same level of signal. This can be especially important when dealing with limited or precious samples. Now that you're caught up on CT basics, learn more about qPCR analysis by checking out our other Applied Biosystems Taq Talk videos or visiting thermofisher.com/qPCR education. Thanks for watching.